Hello, folks, and welcome to ADB Football Focus. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. You know what we're going to do? This is my first show. This is my very, very first show, and God, I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad you're listening to the show. I hope what we're going to do here is the reason it's called ADB Football Focus is because we're going to totally focus on American football. That means alternative football. That means whether it's CFL, UFL, NFL, college football, and I mean all of college football, because this is going to be the opportunity to actually look into every team that you might can think of. You know, we're going to look into all the conferences and all those things. So this is this is the very first show. I'm just proud to be here. Proud for the opportunity to come to you and talk to you about football. Today, we have a very special show planned for you because guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the UFL. Spring football is back, y'all. I don't think there was any doubt. So if you know anything about spring football, for the past couple of years, it's been the USFL or the XFL as the two major spring leagues. There are some other smaller things like IFL, AFL, fan control football. There was even for a while this thing just called the Spring Football League. And, you know, we've had various iterations of these two. The XFL started, I believe, the first time was in 2001. They tried to come out and they failed then they came back again before the pandemic. Again, ran into trouble because the pandemic could not complete the season. But they started again in 2022. New league, first year out the gate, looked like a great product. USFL, same thing. It originally was played back in the 80s. The league eventually folded. League came back last year, 2021. Came back in 2022, 23 season, and then the leagues decided, hey, instead of us fighting with each other over time and over who gets air and all that, why don't we merge? So on December 31st, 2023, the merger of the XFL and the USFL was announced, and it would be run by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Danny Garcia, and Gary Cardinal. And y'all have to excuse me, I'm very nasally today. I'm not feeling that great. Russ Brandon, formerly of the XFL, was named president of the newly merged league. Daryl Johnson, the former president of football operations for the UFL, would be the head of football operations for the new league. The merger was considered a cost-saving measure for both leagues and hopeful that the strengths of both leagues could lead to the survival of the spring football. Now, from what I hear, TV numbers were down for both leagues. XFL was expecting more numbers in their new debut season, and USFL was expecting more in their second season. There are some other issues with the whole fact both of these teams are in this hub system, and there's only so much you can put into advertising and putting the whole thing out there. Now, the merger brought together something that's major for them. That's ESPN and Fox. See, at one time, ESPN and Fox were both invested heavily in the XFL. Fox kind of fell off and decided to go with the USFL last year. Then they got back together this year with the ESPN and said, hey, let's merge these two together. So it brings back these two great networks. So ESPN and Fox Sports as the sole media partners for this new league. That means that games will air on both ABC and Fox, as well as ESPN and Fox Sports 1 networks. So all of their the sister networks of those two conglomerates, you will see football. There will be something on every channel. And you know, one thing about Fox, they control Tubi. They even used to put USFL, so expect UFL games to be on Tubi. So you'll be able to see this all over the place. That's going to be another great thing about this league. It's going to be all over the place. Okay. Now, this was the thing that was kind of disappointing, but I kind of understand why they did it. Only 8 of the 16 teams will operate for the 2024 season. From the USFL, the Birmingham Stallions, Memphis Showboats, Michigan Panthers, and the Houston Roughnecks. Now, let me explain about the Houston Roughnecks. The Houston market had both the XFL and USFL team, and the name Houston Roughnecks was chosen over the Gamblers. Apparently, the Gamblers kind of folded. They looked at it and they figured that the branding of the market would better be under the Roughnecks. For one thing, the Roughnecks actually played in their home market. The Gamblers never played in their home market. So that's a huge problem for them. St. Louis Battlehawks, DC Defenders, Arlington Renegades, and San Antonio Brahmins are XFL teams that survived the cut. The 8 teams are divided into 2 different conferences, and they made it very simple. The USFL teams are the USFL conference, and the XFL teams are the XFL conference. Now, this is supposed to generate a competition between the 2 leagues, and each year each league competes at, well, we were the champions, and the other league said we were the champions this year, ha ha ha, that kind of thing. So it becomes important in that way. Teams were chosen based on the strength of markets. As I said earlier, the Birmingham Stallions versus the Arlington Renegades will kick off the 2024 season in the USFL versus XFL champion match Sunday, March 30th, which will have we'll have to compete for airtime with the NCAA basketball tournament. So in this USFL versus XFL champion, that'll be the first game of the season. Yes, it's right in the middle of March Madness. Let's cross our thumbs. Let's hope there's plenty of viewers of both. Like, if you got TV with TV and TV, go ahead and watch both at the same time. You enjoy it. This is the opportunity to watch 2 sports at the same time. If you're a big football enthusiastic person like I am, then you'll probably tune solely into the football. My brackets are blown anyway. Now back to the UFL. The UFL championship game will be held in St. Louis. Reason why St. Louis is one of the stronger markets. They draw a crowd, so they're going to have the championship there. Playoffs will consist of 2 rounds and will be between the 4 best records in the UFL. They're changing the rules because what happened last year with the XFL, we had a 4-6 team make it into the championship and win the championship. Kind of disappointing for the league. It probably was not a good thing for the league that happened. Some notable names to look for are A.J. McCarron, former Alabama NFL backup, and now St. Louis Battlehawk QB, who had a great season last year as part of the XFL and signed an NFL contract and has stints with several NFL teams, including the Buffalo Bills and most recently the Cincinnati Bengals. Excuse me. McCarron chose to return to the Battlehawks and asked to be released from his NFL contract. So look forward to him being there. He's probably the face of the league. I'm going to say this about A.J. McCarron. Right now, he's the face of the league. He's the name that stands out the most. Now, there's some other names like Jordan Ta'amu. I mispronounced his name. Jordan Ta'amu. Ta'amu. That's his name. Who has played in both the XFL and USFL. Will play for the DC Defenders this year. He went 9-1 as a starter for the XFL. Luis Perez, who's kind of been around the block, he's also a champion. He's been around all the spring leagues. Former Texas A&M star will most likely be the starting quarterback for Arlington Renegades and is the only one of 2 UFL QBs ever to have won the spring football championship. Actually, one of 3 QBs to ever play. But anyway, Jamar Smith returns to the Birmingham Stallions as the starting quarterback after spending a year on IR. Smith won the first USFL champion in 2022. He was replaced by Alex Magoo, who is now in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers. Good luck to Alex Magoo. He was a great player. He was actually the starter the year Jamar Smith won the championship, but he also got hurt, and Jamar stepped in and did a pretty decent job. But it's still going to be a battle for them, and we'll talk about that probably a little bit later or in tomorrow's show. Now, former Baylor running back Abraham Smith was expected to be the back with the DC Defenders this year, but has been put on IR. He's one of the major backs for that team. That team had a pretty decent running game last year. He was one of the top backs in the XFL last season. Now, Case Cookus, another name that's familiar to USFL fans, formerly the 2-time starter for the now defunct Philadelphia Stars of the USFL, is expected to lead the Memphis Showboats this year. Cookus led the Stars on the first USFL championship game where they lost to the Birmingham Stallions in 2022. Cookus was a leading passer in USL for 2 seasons. So there's a lot of talent around here at quarterback floating around in this league. So just like I said, he's starting for the Memphis Showboats. I'm looking right now. I'm seeing 2 teams at least in each league already that are going to be tough to play against already. Each team started camp in late February with a 75-man roster. Teams will cut down to 50, which they have already done. They have 50 players now a week before the season starts on March 30th. So all the teams have gotten their rosters in place. And I was surprised by some of the cuts. And I got to excuse me. Like I said, I'm not feeling great right now, but I'm going to finish this show. You got a lot of people just not that you would be surprised were cut from rosters. Some guys have played last year. Someone played in the championship. Someone played major roles on teams, and they're gone. But we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. The leagues will use a combination of rules from both the USFL and the XFL. The UFL has chosen to use the USFL kickoff. The XFL's kickoff, which is now being considered by the NFL. Actually, the NFL has chosen to use the XFL kickoff, and I was thinking maybe this league would stick to it too, but they haven't. Now, the XFL was popular to most fans of both leagues. The USFL style kickoff will be more like the traditional kickoff, and the ball will be placed at the 20-yard line. All kicks that go out of bounds will be placed 30 yards from the spot of the ball going out of bounds. Now, all touchbacks are placed on the 25-yard line, and all punts that go out of bounds will be considered touchbacks. So that's a little bit different than how traditional football works. Actually, a whole lot different than how traditional football works. Now, teams may also attempt a 4th and 12 at their own 28-yard line instead of an onside kick when behind in the fourth quarter. This rule originated in the AAF and now defunct Spring League. That's another one we can talk about at some other time as well. Because I do want to go over the list of spring leagues that have failed and why we need this one to succeed at one point. All plays are reviewable by the officiating hub. I mean all plays. Traditional extra point will not be a part of this league. Instead, each team will attempt either a 1 point from the 2-yard line, 2 points from the 5, or 3 points from the 10-yard line. The rule was available in the XFL originally, and it should also be noted that the only one 3-point attempt was ever successful. That's the thing. This is just going to be awesome. Teams will still have the option to kick the field goal or go for it on 4th down. Now, some other things that we're going to talk about here. The teams will be allowed to make 2 forward passes behind the line of scrimmage, something you can't do right now in any league. A reception is defined as a receiver having full possession of the ball with 2 feet down or another part of the body other than the hands touching down in bounds. So it kind of makes it a little bit better, but that's kind of, XFL had the 1 foot down. USFL had the 2 feet down, so they're going kind of with the USFL rule on that. Now, overtime, they're going to take the XFL version of overtime. This is pretty interesting. Overtime will be a best of 3 with scoring attempts from the 5-yard line. Now, personally, I would think they should move that out to the 10, make it a little bit more challenging. But the 5-yard line, best of 3. If you can't score within that best of 3, that was some thrilling overtimes from the XFL. I promise you, fans enjoyed that. It is believed that if the 2024 season goes well and as planned, remember I told you they had only 8 teams, the USFL will extend to 12 teams in 2025, maybe 16 by 2026. So in other words, they do plan on keeping the teams. The idea is to eventually get all of this stuff into the home markets. Now, like I said, I've got all that out of the way. Let's talk about something that's really important here. This is a crucial year for this league, basically, because now the 2 teams have merged. So think about this. You had the USFL with its model where they were going, and I think that was starting to hurt them, basically. It started here in Birmingham as the Stallion, so they all games were played here in Birmingham the first year. So they weren't played in their home market. So people weren't really attuned to their team because it wasn't in their market. They were watching it on TV, but they weren't there at the games unless they flew to Birmingham to watch the game. Then the next year, they expanded the hubs, but they still were cities where these teams were not in those cities. Lo and behold, this year, all the teams will play in the city, but they're all still in the hub in Texas because it's spring football. There's not a lot of money floating around like the NFL right now. So in order for the league to grow, people got to watch, people got to come to the games. Hopefully, this year they have a higher talent pool and people will see that on TV and more people will be interested. Because I'm seeing at least 4 to 5 teams right now with great quarterbacks, decent running backs, wide receivers out the yin yang because the NFL had a lot to spare. It's becoming NFL pro anyway. Wide receiver pro. That's what it is now. That's what the NFL is now. They should call it the WFL, double RFL, because all you do is throw the ball. So there's plenty of wide receivers to go around. So it's going to be interesting to see what this product is going to look like. I mean, XFL was throwing it all over the field. Some teams in the in XFL and USFL were throwing it all over the field. I like the more defensive style of the USFL. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two leagues, as they merge, how that works out. Well, that's all for my first show. Please leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about spring football and what else you would like to see on the show. I would love you to comment. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Y'all have a wonderful day.